L- Loving without attachment. This is going to be an interesting episode, interesting conversation because I was so passionate about this once I started to see all the information and doing a little homework about this topic. So you are in for a treat today. This is going to be a good one with one of our returning guests. What's up, Brave Arts community? This is Sean Heineman, your premier pre-engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly. I'm going to jump in today's topic because I don't want to waste our guest time. Today's guest is a creator behind Tynesha Talks, a platform where transparency is normalized in a world full of filters and facades. Amen to that. She promotes self reflection, growth, healing in areas of childhood traumas, dating, relationships, and self worth. She speaks on experiences and struggles that many of us face, but not be comfortable with discussing with others. If you want to be a better version of yourself and want a community that encourages and uplifts your spirit, her content is the place for you. I totally agree with that, Brave Hearts community. Let's show some love to Tanisha. How are you doing this
I'm
evening?
good. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. It's always good to have conversations with you. So I'm excited.
Yes, for sure. Been on your platform before, and I met some great people just from your platform that I had a chance to be on their show. So that shows your reach and how many people that you're actually touching, let alone people that I don't know. So yes, love the platform, and we'll talk about that as well. But this topic, loving without attachment, I want to jump into it. What inspired you to address this topic first of all?
First and foremost, I was a psychology major in college. So anything related to why we are the way that we are, childhood development, that's always been an area of interest for me. And so I remember learning about the attachment styles in one of my psychology classes, and it was something that made me really reflect on the way that I navigate all of my relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, familial relationships. And it was very enlightening. And I think that if people were able to learn about this a little bit more, it would illuminate some things that they're good at, some things that they might need to work on in relationships and help them have healthier relationship dynamics. That's always the goal, right? We want people to have healthy relationships, healthy families. So I think with a lot of that comes introspection. And this is something that makes you think a lot about who you are and why you are the way that you are.
Yeah, because you talked about there was when you talked about attachment styles, you kind of talked about that a little bit, and you really dug deep into even your own personal life, which made it that more exciting. Not exciting, but it was more like, oh, this is good. And again, being transparent, I appreciate that. And so you really did some deep work to be able to address that. I know in your personal life as well as even just sharing it with your audience. So definitely appreciate that. I was looking at this definition, right, of this whole thing with loving without attachment. And I want to say what it says. It says loving without attachment means expressing love freely and deeply without expecting ownership, control, or validation in return, fostering individual freedom and growth while creating a more balanced and authentic connection. It is about cherishing and desiring the happiness of the other person without needing them to fulfill your own needs, desires, recognizing the transient nature of life and relationships. This approach cultivates greater trust, reduces anxiety and dependency, and allows for more of a profound and selfless form of love. What are your thoughts on
Exactly. Yeah, so it actually is a Buddhist principle. So even if you don't believe in that religion, I think just a lot of their principles talk a lot about wellness and having healthy love, being at peace within yourself, loving other people, just having healthy relationships and healthy boundaries. So it embodies all of that. But ultimately, I think it's a concept that is difficult for a lot of people to grasp because for us, love comes with attachment. When you think about when you enter a relationship, you have all of these things like, okay, I need you to make me happy, and these are my boundaries. And, you might want to do this thing, but it's not good for me. So I don't want you to do that. Right. And so we focus so much on just the need to cling on to other people without truly respecting people for who they are, their autonomy, understanding what they need and understanding that maybe we might not be the best person for them at that time in life. But that's difficult for us to digest because we want to be connected to people. And so I just think in this society, we focus so much on the attachment piece and not really love. And maybe that's why love is misconstrued. It's painful for a lot of people, and it's difficult for people to let go and heal and move on from situations.
Yeah, because when everything is worded like the way it is, I'm just like, I got work to do.
It's like everyone's a work in progress. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if anyone ever 100% masters this, unless you're like a Buddhist monk or something. I don't know, but I think for the average person, it's difficult to do.
Yeah, for sure. Have you heard of Jay Shetty? Jay Shetty, yeah, he used to be a Buddhist monk, very popular podcaster, very popular. Yeah, but he used to be a monk, and he just talked about all the things that he experienced. And so when he talked about being a monk, I was like, oh wow, like he been through that. So I wonder if his marriage, if you kind of look at this from this perspective. But I found that to be interesting. Um, so when you hear the phrase "loving without attachment," let me say this real quick before we go any further. Here are some key characteristics of non-attached love. Fosters freedom, promotes authenticity, cultivates trust, reduces anxiety, encourages personal growth, shift focus from possession to well-being. How do, how do you think, was there a specific life experience or relationship that shaped your perspective on this attachment and love?
All of my relationships, I think, and it's funny because my mind goes to romantic, but even the way that I
Mm-hmm.
approach friendships, right? I think about some of my close friendships that I had, and I would be kind of possessive over my friends. It's like, no, you're my friend. Like, why are you hanging around that person, right? Even if you think about stuff like that, it's a sense of ownership over people instead of again letting them flourish and be who they need to be. Um, but I think that now with being in a relationship and it being a serious relationship, I think those attachments that you have will continuously illuminate. It's one thing to reflect on it when you're single. So that's what you were referencing. I made a YouTube video talking about attachment styles, which we can definitely get into so people fully understand. But I was just kind of doing reflection on how my attachment styles impacted the people who I've dated in the past, seeking men who might have been emotionally unavailable and, all those things, right? But then I can also see with being in a long-term relationship how those things manifest. And so it's just interesting to see how it impacts you in different ways. So when you're choosing people who aren't really available for a relationship and then also being in one. And yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where if you're not aware of it, it can have a negative impact on your relationships if you don't have a positive attachment to people. And I think this is why it's important to talk about because people could be impacted by this and not even fully realize it.
Yeah, right. Because and when we kind of talked about this, when you sent me the voice note, you asked me about being married and how does that impact in marriage. And so when I was looking at this, I was just like, that it takes a lot of unlearning to take this approach, which I think is a beautiful thing, right? But it just kind of shows us like the neediness that we have in these marriages and relationships. And we talk about how marriage is not the end all and be all. Like life is more than marriage, but a lot of us we get married like, oh, I don't want to be old, I don't want to grow old, that whole thing. And she cute, and she look good for arm candy, all these different things. But to allow someone to truly be who they are, I think it helps relationships last longer. I believe. I think it's one of those things where you get to a place where you're like, you know what, I'm going to allow them to be who they are, and I'm going to love them for where they are right now. Because I think a lot of times we get married, we think this person is going to be that same person that we married, and people change. And so that could be kind of the challenging part. You're like, you're not the same person that I was with 5 years ago. Yeah, well, they're changed, but can you adapt to their change? So I th-
Change is good. Should I be the same person I was 5 years ago? I don't think so, right? That means I'm probably not growing. So yes, absolutely.
yeah, but I think a lot of times we want people to stay this way because it doesn't require us to change it makes the relationship quote unquote comfortable, because it's like, okay, I know her, I know what kind of food she like, I know all these different things. I don't have to change. But when you make that pivot, and all of a sudden she's looking at you like, no, I don't like that anymore. You're like, I thought that was our jam. I thought that's what we did, you know. And so now it forces you to go right back to the drawing board and learn this person again, which take work in years. And I think that's why, and it's just my opinion, but I think that's why a lot of relationships don't last today, because people aren't willing to make that turn. They aren't willing to make that adjustment, because it's already enough just trying to know somebody for who they are, let alone they change.
It's one of those things where ideally when you're in a relationship, someone is mirroring things within you. So they might mirror some great qualities that you have, but they also illuminate the things that you need to work on. And healing is not easy. I always say this. It's like, I think it gets romanticized on social media where it's like healing is like going to the spa and having self-care days. And maybe it is, but you have to do a lot of deep work and face a lot of things that you might have pushed to your subconscious, things have happened in the past, things that you have not healed from that you might not realize. It's a lot of deep and heavy work, and a lot of people don't want to do that. It's easier to run away from it, honestly. And so if you're facing someone who is constantly changing, which is then forcing you to change and face some of those demons, you're probably going to be more resistant to that.
Yeah. And one of these characteristics that really stood out to me, of I think it's one, two, three, four, of these six, was reduces anxiety. I thought that was huge, and that stuck out to me like a sore thumb, because how many of us are stressed in relationships because this person won't be who, quote unquote, I want them to be? And so to relieve that anxiety is, I'm going to allow, well, I won't even say I'm going to allow, but I can love them for who they are. And it's like, can we really just love people for who they are, even if they don't change?
I think that a part of it is that when we develop romantic feelings for someone, we become attached to someone, we paint this picture of who we want them to be, right? Falling for potential, you start overlooking things. And so you might be falling for a version of this person that doesn't exist. I do think that appreciating people for who they are would cause us to realize that some people are not for us, right? And because we're so fixated on having some sort of attachment to someone, that can be difficult. Like, okay, this one isn't the one, that one might not be the one, so to speak, right? And I think we just kind of cling on to that feeling that we get when we're connected to someone, and we choose to see things through rose colored goggles.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of selflessness to say that you aren't the one, even though I like you, you know. Even though
Yeah.
I think she fine, or he's tall. I like, my man tall, and he, but to allow them to be like, nah, we can keep this moving. You were cool. I think that's a certain level of awareness that a lot of people aren't tapped into, at least from my perspective. I've been out the dating game for a little while, but I mean, you know, because when I met my wife online, I was like, yeah, we good. I don't need to try to rock the boat. We good. We going you know what I'm saying? Let's do this. Um, but to each his own. It's 2025. People
Yeah.
think different, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love how intentional you were. I know you said after 6 months you guys were married, but I think it's difficult because I don't think you can talk about loving without attachment without talking about the attachment styles. And that stood out to me when you were talking about, a relationship should, I guess, reduce your anxiety, or, there shouldn't be anxiety if you're in a healthy attachment or loving without attachment. But the reality is that a lot of us don't have what we call secure attachments. And so any relationship might stir up some element of anxiety if you don't rectify the things that happen in your past that shape how you navigate your relationship. So I guess to take a step back, for those of you who don't know, psychological theory called attachment theory. So basically it's saying that how your needs were met or were not met as a child, that's going to shape the way you navigate all of your relationships, especially your romantic ones. So if your parents were consistently there, they catered to your needs, they showed you affection, you're likely to have what's called a secure attachment, which is good, right? You're approaching relationships from a place of trust. You can build intimacy with people, but you also can maintain your independence so you're not codependent on people. That's kind of like the goal for how you want to be in your relationships. Fortunately, many of us don't fall within that category. Maybe you had childhood trauma, your parents might have been inconsistent, whatever happened in your childhood, or even sometimes in adolescence or early adulthood, that can shape you in what's called an insecure attachment. And so there's like different breakdowns of that, right? So insecure attachment, you're kind of wary when it comes to intimacy, love, communication, just being vulnerable with people. But then there's different facets of that too, right? So you have secure and then you have insecure attachment. But then within insecure attachment, there's like three different umbrellas. So you have what we call the avoidant people. Those are the ones who like fear commitment, right? The ones who are just emotionally detached. And then you have the people who are anxious. So they're super clingy and they want to hold on to a commitment no matter what. It's actually interesting because people who tend to be like clingy and, you know, wanting a relationship codependent, they tend to gravitate toward the avoidant people, right? So you often find that with women where it's like, oh my God, I want love. I'm chasing after this guy who's emotionally unavailable. There's a reason for that, right? It ties to the attachment theory. And then you kind of have a combination of both of those. So people who are avoidant, they fear love. It's like, I don't really like this, but they also crave love at the same time. And it's kind of like a push and pull dynamic. So that is, unfortunately, I'm not gonna say unfortunately because it's something I work through, but that's the one that I resonate with the most. But that would be more of like a fearful attachment style. So I would say, you know, if you feel like you have issues again with intimacy, communication, just being vulnerable, trusting people, look into that because it could be a sign that you have that insecure attachment style.
Yes, yes, I love that you broke it down because sometimes I know sometimes I forget. I'm just like, okay, this is secure, avoidant. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I kind of get in the mix. So I think I read the book about 2 years ago, maybe, just to get some clarity for myself. And so because I was kind of in between. I'm like, wait a minute, like, you know, I love my wife, I love my family, but by default, I'm a loner and I'm an introvert. Like, I don't, you know, it's my mom even laughed at me today. She's like, you know, you doing all these interviews, you talking to people. She's like, you wouldn't say two words when you were younger. And so I just kind of, I like to fall back a lot. You know, I don't know. So uh, I guess I'm kind of in between, like secure and maybe avoidant. I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with that.
I kind of feel like an introvert is a little bit different because it's like, you know, you will talk to people as you do, but sometimes you need your time to recharge. The avoidant person is just the person who is like, they really have a resistance to intimacy. So they might be the ones who view romantic relationships and they're like, nah, that's not for me. I'm gonna be in the streets. Like, I don't want to get close to people. No, don't fall in love with me. Right. Literally. So that would be more of the avoidant tendency. So, I mean, I don't know. Of course, you know, you can identify whether or not you have those tendencies within yourself, but if that's not really a challenge for you, I don't know if I would say you being introverted is avoidant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that gives a little clarity because I'm like, I will check out on everybody in the New York minute and I'm done. But that's another time, I guess. From for someone healing from childhood trauma, how does attachment show up in their relationships, and what steps can they take towards a healthier version of love?
I think you'll see it the most in trusting, right? So whether it be trusting that the person's intentions are pure, trusting that what they say is the truth, just being able to, I guess, lead with trust. Something came to mind and I'm like, this is probably the best way to explain it. There's some people who are like, I start off with trusting people and then I watch their actions and depending on how they move, then that trust might dwindle. Then you have people who are like, I don't start out trusting anybody. Like I'm super cautious and I'm super guarded of everyone. And you have to earn my trust along the way. The latter, I think that is probably going to be more tied to traumas and things in the past. And that's one of the ways that it shows up in those insecure attachment styles. So I think, you know, just things like that, being able to articulate how you're feeling. Some people struggle with, and I'm included, with being able to recognize how you're feeling in a moment, but then explain why. Okay, I'm sad, I'm nervous, I'm anxious right now. Why am I feeling this way? And why am I nervous about getting to know someone? Being able to articulate that is something that people might struggle with too. And then, just that vulnerability piece, putting yourself out there to love someone, knowing that you might get hurt, but trusting that it won't happen, but also trusting that you'll be okay if it doesn't work out, right? I think those things are areas that might be triggering or that people might struggle with if you're dealing with childhood traumas. The way to get over it, I mean, for me, a lot of it is just self-awareness, realizing those things within myself. I'm very much a why person. I ask the why of everything. And so I like to trace back, okay, this makes me nervous. Why am I feeling this way? Okay, once I pinpoint what happened in my life that is making me react in this way, then I can try to kill that. And then I will always be an advocate of therapy. So if you can't figure it out on your own, just talk to a therapist and then figure out things that you can do to really just kind of trust your intuition versus falling on fear when you're getting to know someone. And really just kind of talk yourself through those negative thought processes that you have.
Yeah, because those negative thoughts, I mean, they'll be there. They waiting for you.
Yeah, sometimes you got to tell yourself, like, literally, I'll have a thought, and it probably is an irrational thought. So you have to tell yourself, okay, what is your justification for feeling this way? If you can't come up with a reason why you feel that way, then it might not be warranted, right? Or even just like something that people do too is like if you have a fear of a situation, okay, what if it goes wrong, right? I know it's not good to think about, but okay, if this doesn't work out, what's going to happen? Like, am I going to stop breathing tomorrow? Will I be okay? Right. So once you kind of talk yourself through, okay, if it doesn't work out the way that I want to, what will life look like for me? You're still going to be okay. Things might be painful, but you can still move forward. And just having those conversations with yourself can help ease some of your fears too.
Yeah, because I remember being in marriage class. Matter of fact, I had one of my mentors on a couple of weeks ago, and just like we talk about the attachment styles and stuff. There's a book called "The Mindful Marriage," and even though it says mindful marriage, I believe every person, single, divorced, whatever your status is, I think everybody should read this book because he talks about these 4 steps, and it helps you with regulation. And when you say the four are I feel, and you fill in the blank, whatever that is. I feel. Usually, whatever you do, usually what do you do when you get into arguments or you're dysregulated? I fall out, I abandon, I leave. Truth of the matter is, what's the truth of the matter? The truth of the matter is I'm fearful, or I feel rejected, or I feel alone. And then the fourth one is next time I will, whatever that is. Next time I will be connected. Next time I'm not going to leave just because it got hot in the kitchen, right? And so when you go over these 4 steps, they help you to regulate and opposed to just being in dysregulation and arguing and falling out and getting into it with your spouse because you're not getting along. But when you both are on the same page about that, it just kind of helps bring things down some. But you got to be able to walk yourself through this process. It only take a couple of minutes, especially when you get really good at it. So when my wife and I fall out, usually, we get to it. I'm just like, I feel, and when we know that, then we know
Yeah.
we're in that mode now. So all of a sudden, the temperature kind of changed because it's never you and you always in that whole thing. So when you start doing that, you're always in you. That's when people get defensive. And the conversation usually goes south because you're just constantly pointing the finger. So
Makes you take a second to pause and think before you speak. I think that's the biggest thing when things go downhill. And I've had to learn that within myself. It's like I have a rule where if I'm like, I try to abide by this. If I'm super emotional, it's like, okay, don't speak yet. Just process what you're feeling and then speak on it. So if you take that moment just to take a breather, It kind of relates to what I say are like the three A's. So awareness, accountability, and then action. So like your awareness is I'm feeling this way. Accountability, all right, usually I do this, and then action, I'm gonna do something in a healthier manner. So I like that. Yeah. I have to add that to my repertoire. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So are you the type that you will go off, or do you kind of cry, or do you just really take time to go back and process? Like what where are you at that stage in your life right now?
I think I am a mixed bag. So, what I will say is that when it comes to conflict, I do tend to be more of an avoidant person, and that's something that I'm having to work on within myself. So, I'm typically the person who's like, okay, can we just give me a second to talk about this later? Like, I need to process my emotions because I know that if I try to speak in that exact moment, it might not come out in the best way. But I also understand that can be frustrating for some people when they're like, okay, but I want to talk about it now, right? And so it's kind of figuring out that in between. So sometimes if, my boyfriend is telling me something, I'll be like, okay, I'm just processing what you're saying right now. Like give me a couple seconds and then I'll respond. But it's hard. I think, to sum up the answer, I tend to be more of an avoidant person because I know that if I'm not, I tend to be like, just kind of saying what's on my mind. It's not always the best thing to do. Work in progress.
No, no, I'm with you because I struggle in that area too, but I realized over time how much damage that was doing to me internally and even in my marriage, right? And so, now my wife and I mean, we just don't let daggers fly, but we just put everything out on the table and, we can talk with decency, without having to, having to, go all off the handle and stuff like that. Like you can say what you need to say. And I realized too that came from me not having a voice as a child growing up. You know.
Language, yes, yes. I think for me, my family, like there would be conflict, but kind of passive aggressive conflict, right? So somebody made somebody mad and we're not talking about it, but I'm not speaking to you. And I might say something mean under my breath or something like that. So learning how to kind of talk through those uncomfortable feelings, that's something that I've had to learn as an adult because I didn't really see that, as I was growing up.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm with you. So it was something that I had to learn in therapy, and over time, my wife and I, because my wife, she'll tell you, and so we had to get to a place where it's like, okay, let's talk about this where we are both being heard, opposed to, all right, I ain't gonna say nothing now, I'll wait till later kind of thing. It's like, no, let's just deal with this now. Because I was gonna ask you about this real quick since we're here. How long do you think someone should hold off to process their feelings before you actually get back into having that conversation? I mean, not like you got to put a minute on it, but like, is it 15 minutes? Is it the
How
next
long is it?
day?
I don't think the Okay. So I kind of have two minds here because I know a lot of people say you shouldn't go to bed angry.
Right.
And to a certain extent, I do agree with that because one, I think things will fester overnight. But something that happens with me is I'll feel something very strongly in the moment. And then the next day comes and I'm calmed down, which is good, right? But the downside to that is that I still felt strongly about that, but now it's probably minimized when I'm talking to you about it. So I'm not recollecting things the way that they actually happened and how I felt in that moment. I think the best thing is probably like if you need a break, go outside, take a walk, 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, regroup. But I think the longer you let things delay, especially like the next day, the chances of you actually having a fully transparent conversation where you're actively recollecting what happened, how you made each other feel, that kind of dwindles.
Yeah, because I'm kind of torn in between the two, right? I'm kind of torn because, and I know we kind of got off topic, but I think this is important. Uh, because one part of me says I get it that you need to self regulate, but then the other half of me is like, it's almost like being in a heavyweight fight, and then they ring a bell and you go to your corners. But now you got time to really think like, ooh, I could have got him right there. He said, ooh, he said what? Ooh, I could have killed him on that one. You know what I'm saying? So now you come back in the ring And it's almost like you got a new case on your hands because you were actually able to kind of go through some things. So I'm kind of torn in between the two, but I guess you have to do what works best for you, right?
Saying that it kind of makes you in a way be more combative, where it's like I'm going into it with the intent to win the argument versus finding a resolution.
Yeah, because, um, yeah, because the thing about relationships is, when one person wins, the relationship loses ultimately. So that's the downside of it. Um, how can someone practice non-attached love without seeming cold or disconnected?
I think a lot of it, and this is just kind of like the Buddhist perspective, a lot of it is focusing on mindfulness and focus on your inner well being. So, meditation is something that's big. Really, just kind of cultivating a state of peace within yourself, because when you're happy within yourself, you're not as likely to cling on to other people and feel like you need to seek other people or things outside of yourself to feel whole and happy. So the biggest thing is just figuring out how you can find inner peace within yourself. And that looks different for some people. Maybe it is you having your own life, right? Maybe not being so enmeshed with someone that you're involved with where you do everything together, but you have your own set of friends, you like doing things on your own, you value your own time, where it's like the person is complimenting you, you don't need them to make you whole.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes, when you talk about say like love languages and stuff like that, and say like words of affirmation, it's easy to sometimes get like, okay, is my love language being words of affirmation? It's like I know I'm that dude, but I still like to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like that's cool, but I know, but you know what I'm saying. You could still tell me. Um, how does our sense of self worth play into whether we love from a place of freedom versus a place of clinging?
I feel like I interrupted your question because I was asking you like what I guess like what your thoughts are on that, especially coming from the perspective of a married person. Like, how do you feel you're able to kind of center yourself, so to speak, so that you're not loving from that place of like, I need to be attached? If that takes you off topic, please feel free to go on to the next question. But I'm just curious to know.
No, this is a great question, and let me know because there's so many places I can go with this. I think there's a level of interdependence. I mean, looking at it from this perspective, it takes a lot of work, but I think interdependence helps makes a marriage stronger. Not codependent, but it's like we are these two. It's like a merger, kind of thing. Um, but not codependent. I think it's a difficult balance. I think it can be challenging. I think when we live our relationships on autopilot, that's when it can become dangerous. But I think if we're mindful, um, I think we can actually help make our relationships stronger because we both understand that we are individuals, but our our marriage is bigger than just us. Like it's about the marriage, not so much as just about us. And so it helps keep us as a team, because the cool thing about marriage is, and I tell couples this all the time, marriage is so dope that whoever you marry, you have a fingerprint, a marital fingerprint that nobody else has, which makes the marriage special. Special. It's just like you being Tanisha. There's no other Tanisha in the world, but when you have a marriage, whoever you marry, you create something that no other married couple can create. It might look similar, but it's not the same. It has its own fingerprint, and I think that's the beauty behind it. For my wife and I, we both have businesses, right? She started her business last year. I've been doing this for a while, but it gives us our individuality. So Um, if that answers your question or not, I don't know. I was rambling.
No, I think you're spot on where it's like you still can come together as a unit, but you have your own, individual strengths that you're kind of culminating to your marriage or bringing together in your marriage. But I guess my thought process is like the idea of loving without attachment. Again, like just to recap, giving people the space to be who they are, understanding when to let go if you're not benefiting the person. It seems like just with the concept of marriage or how I would want it to be, where it's like you're vowing to be with this person for better or worse, like this is your life partner. It kind of seems like by nature there would be some level of attachment there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just like, is it truly possible to love without that attachment when you're vowing to be with someone for better or for worse?
I think I think it's possible, right? I think it is possible. I just think that you have to be there's a certain level of awareness that it takes, you know, because a lot of people aren't having these type conversations. Um, because we can say that, you know, I allow them to be their own person or whatever. I love them in spite of, yeah, but you still get frustrated. You know what I'm
And
saying?
that's fair. That's fair. I think that's
Yeah.
natural, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, it's like it was something that they did that rubbed you the wrong way. You know, so it does causes maybe a certain level of stress, a certain level of anxiety. But I don't know any couples, me personally, that has maybe reached that level. And it could be because we live in a fallen world, right? I don't know. You know, we live in a fallen world. You know, born in sin, shaped in iniquity, right? So it could just be our own selfish nature, and to not be selfish, because I think we're taught to not be selfish, you know, opposed to like, no, I'm not selfish. So I don't know. I think it's kind of model behavior. Um, I don't know. My mind is just blown on this because you really got me thinking. I'm just like, man, and how much of that actually plays into my marriage. I don't know. It's probably be something that, you know, my wife and I will have to talk about, or shoot, maybe we need to just jump on and talk about that, you know, and see her perspective. I don't know.
If you're interested or if anyone watching is interested, they have quick quizzes that you can do that helps you understand what your attachment style is. So I think, just kind of having that as a baseline is good. And then be mindful that even if you have an insecure attachment, you can still do the work to become secure. It's not like a death sentence. So it is something that you progressively work on. But it's interesting. I was reading an article where they were saying that the rate of people with insecure attachments is actually increasing. It used to be like more people were securely attached, and then they're seeing that number is going down. And I don't know. I think that is it speaks to just family dynamics. I think a lot of it again is shaped on how our childhood is, and if you think about families splitting, families never even being together, like all of that is shaping who we are and how we see love and relationships. And so I don't know. It's like it's so layered. It's like until
Yeah.
we fix the family dynamics and what children are modeling in their childhood or whatever, I don't know if that will ever be something that changes. It's the work that you have to do in adulthood, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this then, since we're here, um, because as I hear you speak about the family, uh, will we ever get to a place where I won't say ever, but like how important is marriage really in this day and age? I mean, when we talk about attachment styles and husbands and wives and like I think to me, I think marriage is more important now than ever. But you see the stats, fewer people are getting married. You know, so like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think more people should be married, or you think this the state of relationships today is good?
Definitely not good. I think that this is tough because I don't know if everyone is intended to be married.
I agree.
But I do think that maybe if we feel like marriage is not for us, then we shouldn't be doing things that are intended for marriage. I hope I don't rub anyone the wrong way, but like, intentionally bringing children into broken homes, right?
Don't
That's
say
not the
it.
best thing to do, but a lot of people are doing it. And so it's like being mindful of that. As far as marriage, I feel like a lot of this for me ties into spirituality. Kind of reminds me of the video that I posted recently where it's like before I saw marriage being like, well, I'm marrying my best friend and it's a ride or die. And that is still the case, right? But I think that if you are a spiritual person, you believe in a higher power, I think that will strengthen your desire to be married because you see marriage as something bigger than yourself, right? You see that, it's a divine purpose. Ideally, you're joining forces with someone, you're giving back to the world, you're doing what higher power would want you to do. And so I think if you have those beliefs and you're rooted in that, it will make you want to get married. But if you don't have that type of foundation, you probably won't think that marriage is right for you.
Yeah, because we kind of had some conversations on that video, huh? We kind of talked about that in the comments,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So again, like I don't know, marriage probably isn't for everyone, but just be mindful of the choices that you're making that still attach you to someone for a lifetime if you don't want to get married.
Yes, please. Yeah, you can stop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did a reel on your video about that, about marry before you carry or something like that. I think. Yeah, and it went crazy on Instagram in the comments. It rubbed a lot of people the
People
wrong
the
way.
wrong way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
hey, I think in hindsight, if people could go back, a lot of people who get offended by things like that, it's like, would you make the same decision twice? People are
Mm,
being honest; they probably would say no. So,
yeah. 'Cause, I mean,
yeah,
I love my baby, but I mean, come on now,
yeah, 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 yeah.
But and I'm glad you said that because I think for a lot of, I don't know, I just think the family is so important because when we talk about topics like this, and then we talk about broken homes and stuff like that, you literally missing someone that's half of you. So we still create these dynamics, and of course I know everybody won't get married, and I don't believe marriage is for everyone. I totally agree because some people, they should be single, they just should. I think they should be single.
Yeah.
But I just think because and I look at my boys, and I'm just thinking like because we have a blended family as well, right? I have an older daughter, but she's on her own. But then my wife had a son before we were together, and I've been in his life over the past 7 years now, going on 8. And I'm just like, he's mine. Like the memories is he gonna have is of us. No shade to his biological, but it's like, no, I want him to be good because I feel like I'm raising a husband. You know what I'm saying? I'm raising somebody who's going to have his own family one day. So um, I don't know. I couldn't see somebody else raising my child. I don't know. That's me though.
I think you said something important, right? Just thinking about it from the perspective that you are raising someone who might be a husband, wife, mother, father one day. And so I even think thinking about it from that perspective, if you want children, right, that is all more reason why having that family unit, showing them that marriage doesn't have to be this fearful thing, like the way society makes it seem. Like you're setting that example and setting that foundation of how they're going to engage in their relationships in the future.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. Ah, great episode. I kind of want to keep it.
Every stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So hey, and I think this is a conversation that can go on. Like there's more questions that I want to ask, but I don't have them prepped yet. I want to be able to really dig deep into this. This is definitely like part one. You have to come on and do like another part because I think there's
Yeah.
some loaded. But I do want to take a couple of seconds to say hello to our sponsor at Love Fearlessly. Intimacy card deck that my wife and I created. Scared to remarry.com. It'll be in the description below. 30 card deck. Great for date nights. Great for spouses, for married couples. The cool thing about having this card deck, because I understand a lot of people do have them, but it's coming from a husband wife perspective. So we kind of went over all these questions. It was like, I don't think we're gonna use that one. No, this is good. So that's the difference, is the husband and wife dynamic. And so, Tanisha, I want to pull a card from the deck, and I want to ask you a question.
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Question. Yeah, some of these are super personal. I'm gonna ask. Okay, how did you manage hurt and disappointment growing up?
How do I manage hurt and disappointment? I think I internalized it. I definitely would say I internalized it, and it kind of disappointment. I would say led me to just not be dependent on people as much, and I think that's where like the avoidant tendencies come from, where it's like, can't really trust people. People have been inconsistent in the past, so I'll just kind of figure things out on my own, and I don't really want to accept or trust in getting love from people because it's like, it's probably going to end out bad anyway. Like those are thoughts that I've had in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say again, internalize it, learn not to be too comfortable in any situation because I feel like it can constantly change, and that led to my attachment style for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know I struggle with that big time. I think maybe my brother was probably the first person that I felt like, I could talk to, like really share my feelings with. And that helped me tremendously because it's like I couldn't talk to my mom about it because my mom was busy working. Like she didn't have time for all that. So yeah, I think it's a great question. It just helps you to be able to process some things, and it requires deeper conversation. So, yeah. So to those who are watching, to those who are watching the replay, feel free to grab your deck. Scarytoremarry.com/products. You'll be able to see it there. Tanisha Uncut, you ready?
Oh, hang on 1 second, 1 second. I just saw that my laptop charger came out. I want to make sure I don't lose you. 1 second.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because it says 20. Yeah, it says, yeah, I see 20%. Yeah, so, okay. Good catch.
We are good.
All right, cool. Bonus. So, what's the biggest mistake you see women make when it comes to dating?
That is a tough one. The biggest mistake.
Or that you see?
I think that women, there's so many that come to my mind. I think that we fall for potential a lot, right? The idea of wanting to change someone and mold them into who we want them to be. And I feel like we focus a bit too much on how someone makes us feel in the short term. A lot of those things are tied to lust. So like you were talking about earlier, like, oh, the height and they look good. I don't want to get rid of this person. There could be someone who genuinely is for you and we overlook them, and then we have a bad experience and we carry that hurt into our future relationships or dating situations, and it's just a never ending cycle. So I think the biggest thing is that we kind of invest in men who look good to the eye, but are not good for our hearts. And it just kind of hinders the progress that we have toward meeting the person who was right for us.
Mm, yeah. 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 I used to think, I used to be like, a lot of times men are, we kind of marked by like men, they just like women for physical appearance. But I mean, I think everybody wants somebody that's attractive, right? Everybody.
I think both is important. I'm never going to be the person who says, oh, I'll learn to be attracted to someone. That's not it for me. But I think that sometimes we allow physical attraction to overshadow everything. And we put in more work into trying to force that the romantic and the actual commitment side of things instead of realizing that other people might have other values that are great for what we want in the long run, but we're not willing to put that work in.
For real. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I just thought about this. I gotta ask you. I'm glad that we're here. Now I know this kind of current event stuff, and I know it's Paul Pierce. Okay, I know it's Paul Pierce, but he said something the other day that I was tripping on, and he said uh, men should date women that are fives and sixes opposed to nine and tens because
Yeah.
they require too much. So I'm like, are you supposed to lower your standards, or is there some truth in that?
I think a 5 and a 6 is a little bit low on my scale personally, but I do think that there is some truth where people who are more on the attractive end of the scale, they rely on their looks and they lead with that. And the character development, as I like to say, or the personality and the substance might not necessarily be there. Or they might have a perspective that they might not have to try as hard because they have a bunch of options, right? Whether that's true or not, they might not be as invested. But that's not the case for every single person. But I do think that sometimes there's people who might be 7 and 8s, maybe some 5 and 6s who are the same way, right? So it's really just about assessing someone's character. It's not always tied to how they look. There's a lot of women who will tell you, or people in general, someone they dated someone who was like below their threshold of what they wanted physically, and it's like I got played anyway, and you're not even cute, right? So I don't think that's like a one size fits all.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, like, and you aren't attractive, and you still stepped out.
Right, right.
That's funny. Um, Fill in the blank. My last relationship taught me.
There's a lot of things that come to mind. I'm just trying to think of one that might be best for the situation. My last situation taught me not to someone or connecting with someone who is broken or unhealed as love. Those are two very different things. I think connecting over shared pain and experiences can be more of like the trauma bonding side of things, they say, versus actually loving someone. So that was something I had to learn. I think in past relationship or even previous relationships in general, I was always kind of like, oh, but you're like a hurt little bird. I want to show you love. I'm a hurt bird too. Let's love each other, right? And it's just not loving from a place of fulfillment. So learned not to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, my homeboy, we were doing this pilot. We did a couple of episodes together called 40s Unfiltered, and it was basically like two married black men talking about real life stuff that we deal with, right? And we talked about like the Superman complex in men, and especially how even we struggled with that, where it's like, we would get into relationships with people like, I'm a good man, and this would be the best relationship you ever had, or what I'm saying, and try to date people that you just felt like you could fix, what I'm saying, and it was just like that was really bad, and I learned a lot of stuff from that, even in that episode, and I was just like, dang, looking back, over the way I used to date, and I was just like, man, that was really bad. It was really bad.
Illuminating. It makes you reflect on yourself more because I think a lot of people will think back to those experiences, right? And it's like, yeah, painful, and you might badmouth the people that you dated, but again, there was something in you that not only attracted them, but you chose to entertain them. And so we have to have those difficult conversations with themselves. Like, yeah, they might have done something messed up, but I still was there for it. And I felt in my heart that was the right person, right? So it's like, what was lacking within myself during that time frame?
Oh, right. And that's what I was saying. I was like, man, just looking back over that, and I was just like, that's something that I was like, man, I had to work through that. Um, to see the person that I am now. What made me say that was there was a post I post on Instagram. No, I think I put it on, I think I might have put it on Instagram, but on TikTok it went crazy. I said, if your ex was terrible, I said, if your ex was that terrible, what does it say about the version of you who chose them? And so people came for me in the comments. That, oh, we're victim blaming now, that whole thing, and but the comments, I think it was over maybe 700 comments. It was ridiculous.
Victim blaming, or do we have a victim mentality? Those are things that I've had to ask myself too. Like, okay, I'm making myself to be the victim in this situation. I could have, unless it was a abusive situation, we're not condoning that or justifying that, but could have walked away.
Of course.
Probably ignored red flags. Chose to try to see the good in someone. Those are all decisions that we made. So you have to own that. You have to own that.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was like, a lot of people I chose to date was out of my own lack of self confidence. You know, and no shade to my exes. Lord knows if any of my exes are watching this,
Confidence is low, and that's why I like you. Dang.
I mean, I'm just saying. I hope no
Yeah.
shade. We all mature. Uh, uh, last question: is it easier to love yourself or someone else?
Someone else.
Expound. Can you talk about that a little more?
I think, yeah. I had to process my thoughts for a second. I think that, okay. So I'm probably saying this from the lens of someone who has an insecure attachment. So I'll just start there, right?
Okay. Okay.
Even though someone who approaches his love from a healthy perspective might say equally, right? I love myself and it's easier for me to love other people because I'm confident that I pick healthy partners, right? But if you're not in that wheelhouse, I think that you are probably seeking relationships that are not healthy. And a lot of that can be rooted in just having low self worth, being insecure, confidence in whatever area. And so it's very difficult to fix those things. Like the healing part is exactly what we've been talking about. It comes full circle. All of those dark things that are in your closet, it's harder to fix those. And so in turn, we latch on to other people. And that's why you have people who are in relationships every 3 to 6 months. And it's easy for you to fall in love with someone because you're looking for them to kind of be an extension of yourself and fill those voids because you don't love yourself. So for me personally, I think, loving someone, those feelings coming about, that's easier than doing the deep work to fully love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because usually when I ask people that question, they were like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. What do people usually say? I'm curious to know.
Actually, it's like a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think about that too. I think about it's because half of me is like, how can you love somebody if you don't love yourself? Like, how could you reflect love if you don't know what that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Chances are that it's unhealthy because you don't know what it looks like. Uh,
Yeah.
but then the other half of me is like you were saying, um, like let me show you that I can love you, or knowing me internally, I know what I think. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can see what I think. And so sometimes that could be hard for me to love myself because I'm like, I'm tripping today. You know,
Mm.
if only they knew,
Yeah.
that whole thing. So, yeah, so it's, but I just like asking those questions. There's never no.
I gotta take that one. I'm gonna ask someone like, do you think it's easier to love yourself or someone else? I'm curious to know what other people say.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay. I'm gonna let you go then. I have one more.
Okay, go for
Okay, one more.
it. You good?
One more. Because this is another one of those questions. Who makes a better spouse? Someone never married or someone divorced?
Ooh. You know what? So it's hard for me to say because I've never been married, but I came across this post where someone was saying it was like a thread talking about being the second wife or whatever. And they're like, I'd rather be the second wife because the first one was kind of like the trial run and they probably learned more about themselves and about marriage. And so those ones, if I'm not mistaken, they have a higher chance of lasting longer. I have to double check that statistic.
For
Um,
what second marriages?
yeah, like if you were to get married again, like married versus the success rate for the first marriage.
Well, no. Well, first marriages divorce rate is like 40 something. They're kind of dwindling now. People say it used to be half, but now it's a little bit like 40% kind of thing. But
Okay.
second second marriages, the divorce rate is, I believe, 60 something.
Dang.
Yeah, the
Ooh,
divorce
I
rate,
wonder.
yeah, they go higher. And
Okay.
so, yeah, the second one, I believe, I believe it's 67%.
Okay.
Second marriage. Third marriage divorce is 73%. So they go higher.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, dang, if you're just looking at the data, then I would say probably someone who's never married, right? So now I'm challenging the way that I was thinking. But I guess another way to think about it is that when you have never been married, you're kind of approaching it from a clean slate. Sometimes that could be good too, right? So you both can kind of come together and cultivate what you feel marriage should be versus you already having that experience. You might be jaded in the way you think about things. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, so I guess someone who's never been married.
Yeah, because
I
maybe
think
that's important.
also, yeah, but then also I think it would let me know, like, if they've been married before. No shade to people, no shade to you, right? No
You already
shade to
said it.
you. Yeah. I was gonna say no shade to people who've been married already, but it makes me question, like, are how committed are you to the idea of marriage? Like, if you're just constantly leaving, maybe not, right? So I guess that could be a way to think about it too.
Yeah, because I interviewed a lady. I interviewed her. I think she's in Atlanta too. You might know who she is, but
Hmm.
she was saying that when her husband said that he was divorced, that changed the conversation where she was like, okay, so he's been through some things. Let me
Hmm.
stick around and see how this worked because he's been through some adversity and he's still okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so there's all kind of different, but who knows?
Hmm.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but Tanisha, thank you so much for being a guest today. Like I said, I had to invite you again because the wheels were turning. This was like our test run because I'm just like I got questions and we
Yeah.
want some more. So let everyone know how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. So if you want to stay in touch with me, you can watch my longer form videos on YouTube, which is Tynesha Talks. It is very discussion based. We're a community where we share what we feel. Everyone is on a journey to be the best version of themselves, and it's a very supportive environment. People love my transparency, and I love how people walk on my transparency. Sometimes I'm a hot mess, but they're there for me, right? So if you want to join the fam, check me out there. And then I'm also on Instagram at Tynesha_Renee. That's my shorter form content, just more of like lifestyle posts. So whatever your flavor is, feel free to tap in with me. And yeah, support the fam.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Brave Arts community, you heard it here. Make sure you go connect with Tanisha because her content is amazing. I've had a chance to do some reaction videos, and they go crazy every time I do reaction
Yeah.
videos. And yeah, and I love the transparency, love the vulnerability because that's something that a lot of channels are lacking, and we all
Hmm.
human out here, right? So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your bravery and to be able to share, a part of your life with us. So yeah, that's something that I know I don't take lightly. But yeah, Brave Hearts community, make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend, put this video in your group chat. So that way, watch
Yes.
the episode and y'all can help me run up these watch hours. And so you had a conversation after y'all watched the video because I know it's like four of you on the group chat. So I know. But anyway, if you are listening to this via podcast, make sure you leave a rating and review. By doing so, it puts you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? This is Sean Heineman with my special guest. Am I pointing the right way? This way.
So yes. Yes.
With my special guest, Tynesha Talks. Brave Hearts community, we are out.